What's up, Des Moines? Doc Ladd here with the Fit Moines podcast. Changing it up today. And, historically, we've done coaches and clinicians on the podcast. And today I've got Justin Reid. He's a personal injury attorney with us. So thank you, Justin, for being with us.
Thank you for the invite. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we're switching it up today, doing something a little bit different. And the reason is, it's because honestly, like we met a while back and I've learned so much from you just in a short amount of time. Like even the first time we met, I was kind of amazed with everything there is personal injury wise that I just wasn't aware of. And so things that like would be helpful from a provider standpoint, but then like on the patient side too, if I were ever in that situation, like I wouldn't have known what to do. And so we really highlighted this recently where we had a patient who was in a car accident and really didn't know what she didn't know type of thing. And so we referred her to you, and she said a couple times like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I have someone that knows what they're doing and can just handle it. And I don't have to worry about it. Like she's got enough stuff to worry about and doesn't need one more thing. And so having someone in her corner has been super helpful. And so, like I said, not a coach, not a clinician that I'm aware of,
Nope.
but you provide a lot of value and I think would be really interesting for people. So let's get started. Justin, let's have you give just your background, where you're from, what got you into this world. And I think your background's really interesting. People find it fascinating too.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So yeah, I think my background's probably a little bit different than a lot of people who got into law. I think most people, it's like from a young age, like, oh, I want to be an attorney, or they go through all this education and realize like, well, I'm not sure what to do. Let's go to law school. I started a welding company. I did dual enrollment in high school and graduated high school with a welding degree. And I had started a small welding company while in high school, but my parents really wanted me to go to school for at least a year. And so I was like, all right, I'll go for an associate's in business. That'll help the little welding company, and it'll be a benefit all around. I go to school for business. I was just going to do an associate's in business, go for a year and see how things panned out. And in my second year of school, I had to take an HR class. And in the HR class, they did a job aptitude test, and they're like, "You scored off the charts for law. Have you ever considered it?" And I just started chuckling. My dad is an attorney. I loved going to work with my dad as a kid, but it was something that I never ever considered. I think mostly I wanted to be hands-on, but also I didn't think I was smart enough to do it. And so that the teacher's just like, well, what's your grades? And told her my grades. And she's like, yeah, you're definitely smart enough to do it. And so that was the first time, even like growing up in a house with a lawyer, as my dad, that was the first time I ever considered going to, 4 years of school and then to law school. So quite the change from, welding to law. I think what I realized is that I loved business and I loved helping people. And so that was kind of what I was solving with welding is, the love of business, but also being able to help people out and provide a service. And so I'm able to still do that through law. And I think that's kind of what drew me into it. And I love working with my dad. It's been a lot of fun. So there's kind of
Yeah.
a quick summary.
Yeah. So I take it your dad didn't push you into law.
Not at all. And that's kind of what's shocked so many people is like you've got someone, like you have a lawyer in the family, and never once did he ever consider or like push me into it. I'm one of 11 kids, and I'm so far the only attorney, and yeah, none of them seem too interested in it. And but I've appreciated that he just wants us to find what we're passionate about.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Just like physical therapy and many, many different healthcare careers, there's a lot of different things you can do. And so being an attorney, being a lawyer is no different. Like there's a lot of different fields you could go into. Why personal injury? I know your dad does that, but he wasn't a big motivating factor to go into law. So why personal injury? Why do you like that?
Yeah, I think obviously outside of, that's what my dad did. That's where his firm was. He has practiced personal injury from day one of his career on the plaintiff side. So the individual, and it's been over 30 years now. And so that was kind of obviously the easy route in. But like what I mentioned, I like being able to work for the individual, work for the person, and kind of against the David and Goliath situation. You've got like the insurance on the other side. You've got their team of lawyers and all the claims handlers and everything. And then you've got the individual who's just kind of like floating around trying to figure out, how to make it work, what they're supposed to do, and navigate the complexities of insurance. And so I think like that aspect definitely drew me in. And I knew like from the very beginning, I did not want to work in, the typical punch in, punch out, big law type situation. I wanted a little bit more flexibility, and I wanted to be able to grow my own practice. And so there's that aspect of it too, where, if I would have gone to some big defense firm or into some, one of the big law firms, I probably wouldn't have as much flexibility and the ability to, choose my clients, choose my cases, and kind of grow, my practice in a way that I think is beneficial to me and to our clients.
Sure. Now, I know you mentioned, you just want to be able to help people. What would you say, other than that, what is it about personal injury law that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, I think the complexities of it all, like obviously no two cases are the same. So you've got like the liability, who's at fault, how was the crash happen, or how was the accident? What was it, a car accident? Was it, some sort of a premises case, workers comp, kind of where did the negligence happen? And then trying to figure out the injuries, learn the medicine. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but we read lots of medical records and trying to figure out what the injury was, trying to link that to how it happened and put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and then trying to convey all of that into a cohesive story to tell, whether it be the insurance company or if it gets to that point to jurors, tell the story of the client.
So let's walk through that then. If I'm someone that's in, let's say, a car accident,
Yeah.
what steps should I take?
Yeah. Well, the first things that we always tell people is to get a police report. So obviously, depending on the level of urgency there, either call 911, call the non-emergent number, and even if the other party is admitting fault, we still highly recommend getting a police report. It just makes everything smoother. The other party can change their mind later. The insurance company could convince them otherwise. Maybe the insurance company is just gonna take longer to accept liability if there's no police report. So first step, get a police report. Makes it the whole process way easier. It's going to have all the insurance information, who the other party is, and then obviously the officer is going to give his take on the liability, who's at fault. And then the second thing is medical treatment. Obviously, the person who's injured or been in the car accident, they know the extent of their injuries and they know their body better than anyone. And so they need to assess themselves and determine whether they're injured or not. And if they're injured, if they're not doing well, then obviously they need to get the medical care. And that's kind of becomes a big issue is when we run into clients, patients who kind of want to tough it out. And then they figure out, a few weeks later, a couple months later that, yeah, it's not getting better. And then we're stuck in the situation of trying to prove that the injury that they haven't been treating for, haven't ever treated for up until a month or two later was caused by the crash. So our big recommendation is like, if you're feeling pain or even, think you might be having issues, just get it checked out and report that, that way it's recorded. That's our evidence, whatever's in the medical records. So that's definitely where I'd start.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was going to be one of my big questions because we've seen that several times where people think they're good and then weeks or months later, like you said, they start having neck pain or back pain and then they're trying to tie it to the accident. And so it becomes more difficult at that point to
Yeah.
prove.
Yeah. And I think that's a super common thing. It's like the adrenaline's pumping. And we get that all the time where you at the scene of the crash, like you're reading the police report and the officer says that no one reported any injuries. But then 3, 4, 5, 6 hours later, maybe the next day, they wake up and like the adrenaline's decreased and they're kind of waking up and they realize, like, hey, I'm actually pretty stiff. I'm pretty sore.
Yeah.
I think it's super common.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So we've got a police report, went and sought medical care. Then what?
Yeah, so that's when the claim starts. So the first thing that they want to do is open a claim. So if you got your accident report or your driver's exchange of information report, it should have the at fault party's insurance company on there. And you just call them, open up an insurance claim, and kind of get the ball rolling that way. Obviously, if you think you need help or you want to get advice of a lawyer, which I would recommend, call a lawyer. They'll help you through opening the claims process as far as like who to call, who to talk to, things like that. And then once the claim's opened up, if you do hire a lawyer, I guess we'll kind of walk down that route. The lawyer is going to order the accident report and potentially badge cam, dash cam, stuff like that if they think they need it, and talk with the insurance company, send out a letter of representation, let them know that, you're the one handling their accident claim and that all the contact will then go to the attorney. And so the injured person doesn't have to deal with the stress of handling and kind of navigating the whole claims process. And then from there, it's kind of a waiting process, waiting for the client to kind of treat, get through that process. I always tell people you only get one bite at the apple. So once you settle the case, there's no coming back like, the next week and say, hey, I'm injured again, or I'm still injured, I'm still having pain, I'm going to need some more money. You get one shot. So once you settle the case, it's done. So we don't negotiate or try and resolve anything until the client's done treating and they've kind of got some stability, and we have a full picture of what the injury actually is, and we can kind of see and assess the full value of, you know, what's been harmed.
Can you talk about, it's common, I guess, for insurance companies to want to settle right away. And so can you talk about that and then what your recommendation would be and maybe why they do that and what people should look for?
Yeah, I probably view it as kind of like the cynical insurance company. My personal opinion, my professional opinion is that sometimes they do it when they think that there's going to be a bigger case. And so they can quickly offer someone a couple $1,000s when, in all reality, they've got a much, much bigger case. We see that very, very, very frequently where a client will, sometimes they'll even send a check. So they'll send a release and then they'll send a check and just state that, if you sign and deposit the check, that's consenting to settlement of your claim. I would highly, 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 highly recommend not signing or depositing any of those checks. Like I said, you get one chance. And so if you have no idea what your injuries are going to be, if you're still treating, you don't know whether your injuries are going to be permanent, ongoing, or for how long. And so if you take that bite of the apple right after the crash is done, before you have that complete picture, you never know what's going to happen after that. And we see it all the time with a lot of different insurance companies. But yeah, I would just shred up the check and wait. It'll still be there. Even it's nice to get the quick money, but the check will still be there. They rarely, if ever, back out of whatever they've offered you, unless they find some crazy piece of information that, would have denied liability, something crazy like that. Otherwise, that check will still be there, when you're done treating. And most likely it's going to be more money than what they're initially offered.
I can see where people would kind of run into issues, especially if you're hard up for money and you've got a couple thousand sitting on your lap. I could see where people get themselves into a tricky situation then. And that's just what insurance companies want, right? They want you to go ahead and cash that and they can wipe their hands clean and say, well, you did this, so we're done here.
And that's like I guess the saddest part of it is like, this doesn't happen to people who could afford to take the loss. It happens to the people who the loss is going to impact the most, the people who the money means the most to. That's who are most likely going to kind of feel the pressure to accept that reduced offer that, is not full value, not what their claim is actually worth.
So let's talk about this a little bit more. I'm sure people are wondering, and I would be wondering too. Say I don't have a lot of money. How am I going to hire an attorney to help me with this case? Because I've heard attorneys are expensive, and how do I do that? What? Talk about that though, because I think that's a real concern for people. Is like, this is going to cost me a lot of money. How can I hire you to help me with this when I just take the check that this insurance company's sending?
Yeah. So personal injuries, so car accident situations, they work on a contingent fee. That's kind of a nationwide standard, which just means that if you get in a car accident, you hire a lawyer, you're not going to pay them anything up front. You're not going to have to front any expenses or anything like that. No retainer. The attorney is just going to get paid out of the proceeds of the settlement. So the national average used to be like a third is what an attorney would charge for like a car accident type of a case. I think a lot of different states have increased. A lot of probably the bigger national firms that are getting an Iowa presence have increased that rate. But yeah, that's kind of the going rate. But it does provide a big benefit to the client just because they don't have to obviously come up with money that they may or may not have, and forces the attorney to take on the risk of potentially not getting paid if there's not a real case, and to make sure that they maximize the recovery for the client.
Gotcha. Now, tell me, or let's talk a little bit about med pay, because that's something that I had never heard of until I met you, and you were explaining that whole thing. It's very interesting. I don't know that a lot of people know about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the parts of your insurance are only going to work depending on who's at fault type of a situation, but medical payments is a no fault insurance benefit on your car insurance. I believe in the state of Iowa, it's going to be on there unless you sign something stating that they can take it off. But most carriers, it should be on there. But what it does is it just gives you money to treat. So I know a lot of people have either no insurance or they've got expensive copays, deductibles, things like that. And so medical payments coverage is going to be used to reimburse where they've had to pay something out of pocket. So commonly chiropractic care, or if you're going to a physical therapist that doesn't take your health insurance, you can still use the medical payments coverage. Most of the time, it's somewhere around like $5,000, sometimes down to $1,000, and then we see it sometimes up to $10,000, $15,000. But yeah, it's a huge benefit for clients because even if if they caused the crash, but they still are having issues, still having injuries, they can still make a med pay claim, and if they've got any copays, deductibles, or insurance isn't covering it, they'll still be able to use those funds to pay for anything out of pocket.
Now, is that going to be something where that's then a claim against your insurance and your premiums potentially going to go up, or how's that work?
That's the $1,000,000 question. And especially with like insurance rates right now, people are scared to even make like an underinsured, uninsured motorist claim, which an underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage claim, those are made when the person who caused the crash doesn't have any insurance or has not enough insurance. And so in both of those situations, the person making the claim is at no fault of the crash. Hypothetically, they're not a greater risk to the insurance company by making those claims. They didn't do anything to cause the crash. They were just the beneficiary of the other person's acts. But people are still scared to make those claims because, you're still making a claim with your insurance company. Insurance is already super expensive. And so there's a lot of people who are scared to make those. And it's the same with MedPay. They are nervous using any benefit of insurance, what they pay for, their rates going up. What I always tell people is we're lucky that we have a free market in America, and there's a ton of insurance companies in the state of Iowa. And so if your insurance company raises your rates for you using the insurance that you pay for, even though, you didn't cause any crash or cause anything that should increase your rates, then just go find a new one. I guess whether their rates will increase or not, I'm not sure. We haven't really seen that with our experience, but anything's possible, especially with the
Sure.
insurance game right now.
Yeah, absolutely. To go back a little bit to what you talked about, say I am the person that's at fault for an accident, should I still reach out to a personal injury attorney, or what would your recommendation be there?
Yeah. So if first off, I hope you have insurance because if you have insurance, well, it helps the plaintiff too. But if you have insurance, your insurance carrier is going to handle the insurance process. If a lawsuit is filed against you, they're going to hire an attorney for you, and so there's nothing that's not going to come out of your pocket. Which could get super super expensive if you didn't have insurance and you've got to pay for a defense lawyer out of pocket. So I personally probably wouldn't reach out to a lawyer if, I caused a crash. I would just give my insurance company a call, let them know what happened, report the claim, kind of give my side of the story. And if it's super, super like a really bad crash, they might hire a lawyer right off the bat. But in most cases, they're just going to open up a claim, try and get it resolved without the other side filing a lawsuit. And if it gets to the point of filing a lawsuit, they'll hire a law firm to represent you. So yeah, there's really no need to kind of retain your own counsel in most situations.
Gotcha. What are some other misconceptions about personal injury that you think people should know?
Misconceptions. I think one of the big ones would be like the speed of a case, kind of like what we talked about earlier. I feel like some people come into it and think that they hired a lawyer, the lawyer's going to send a letter and they're going to resolve the case overnight type of a thing. And, obviously that can't happen if the client is still treating, if the client's still having issues. So I think the timeline of when a case is going to resolve, I think that's a big misconception people have. And I think probably the other big misconception would probably be that hiring a lawyer means that you're going to trial or means that you're going to have to file a lawsuit. Very rare these days. I think the national average is like 3% of these type like car accident type cases actually go to trial. And probably, at least in our experience, it's like 75 to 80% of cases even, have to file a lawsuit. And so it's very rare that the case either has to be filed and even more rare that it actually goes all the way to trial.
Interesting. All right.
That's the big misconceptions.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really interesting stuff. Things that I guess I would have had questions about, and I didn't know.
And it's really changed over the years. Like my dad at the beginning of his career 30 years ago, he tried a lot of cases, but I think both sides kind of learned that, if you can resolve them without filing a lawsuit, if you can resolve them without going all the way to trial, it's kind of better for all parties. And so that's been a huge, huge shift over the last 3 decades.
Absolutely. Now, what makes your law firm different than anyone else in the Des Moines metro, and why should they seek out your help?
Yeah, that's a
Put you on
great
the spot.
question that I've never been asked. I think as far as like there's a lot of national firms that are making their entrance into Iowa, and we're obviously not going to compete with them on marketing, advertising. But when you call our firm, you're going to talk with a lawyer. I know a lot of the bigger firms, you have case managers, you have paralegals, a lot of other people other than lawyers that you're going to be speaking with. And so sometimes getting access to the person that you're hiring to represent you isn't easy. But one thing that, is going to be more unique about our firm in particular, but lots of smaller firms, is that you're going to have actual contact with your lawyer. You're going to be able to, if you need something, you can reach them. And I think that's one thing that we do provide or do really well compared to a lot of firms is that we're incredibly accessible. We answer the phone, which seems like kind of the lowest of low tiers. But one of the most common bar complaints is that their attorney won't return their calls, which is just kind of blows my mind. But yeah, we answer phone calls, we respond to emails, and I think we try and treat our clients like friends, like family, and not just a file number, not just because when people are going through like a personal injury case, it's deeply personal. It's probably something they've never been through before, and a lot of times they're scared, overwhelmed, intimidated. And so yeah, just being able to provide a level of communication that can give them peace and just let them know like, hey, this guy's got it taken care of, I think is a big difference maker.
Yeah.
I don't like
Yeah.
to brag, just go look at our Google reviews.
Google me. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can attest to that just personally in my experience with you. I don't have any experience with your dad, but you personally, like we've reached out, you respond to emails very quickly. I've called, you've answered the phone. I think one time I called, your assistant answered and you had me called back within an hour or so. It was very quick. We've had experiences other places where it's like you don't ever hear back or you can't get a hold of anyone. So, um, that side of things can be very frustrating, just even from a provider standpoint, knowing that like I can reach you. And if I've got questions, because I don't know the ins and outs of this. So if I've got questions and I've got a resource where I can go to, and I've hit you up for other things too, where it's like, I know this isn't what you do, but like, what do I do here? Or like, who should I go to for this? And so, um, just been super super helpful, and so it's very much appreciated. And I can see from the client side as well, having someone that truly cares about them and their case and helping them out, like you said, is huge. And we talk about that here in physical therapy too, right? Like Kaizen's not going to compete with the big national chains. Like I don't have the budget that they have.
Hmm.
I can't market like they do. You might see them on every corner, but I can promise you we're going to give a level of care that's different than what they are. And so
For sure.
Google us as well.
Yeah. Look at the reviews. The proof's in the pudding.
Exactly. So is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want people to know or want people to hear about?
Yeah, I think one big overarching thing is if you don't know if you need a lawyer, ask someone for a recommendation. Find someone that other people have recommended to you and give them a call. A good lawyer is not going to take a case that they can't, actually benefit you on, provide value to. So it doesn't hurt to call personal injury lawyers. They work on a contingent fee. They're not going to charge you for an initial consultation. So yeah, pick up the phone, give them a call and see if there's something that, they think that you need help with, or if they think it's a case that you can handle on your own. I think a big percentage of the cases, the calls that we get, we tell people like, hey, we can help you if you need the help, but you're better off just handling the claim on your own. And I think a good law firm is going to do that.
Other than Google, how does someone know? Google and word of mouth, I guess, there's the big things. But other than that, like, how does someone find someone that's reputable and is going to do the right thing? So I think some attorneys have
Mm,
given attorneys a bad rap. I guess I'll put
yeah,
it that way.
yeah. I would be careful of what you see on Google. That's what like you don't know. You can say anything. You can doctor your own reviews, and so I guess ours could all be fake, but they're not. Um, No, what I would recommend is ask people, on social media, Facebook, hey, I'm in a car accident. Hey, I need a family lawyer, and see who other people recommend that you know. And, even if it's not in the right practice area, if it's a good lawyer in family law, they probably are gonna give you a recommendation for someone like them that does personal injury or whatever whatever type of lawyer you need. So I think that's honestly the safest route to find a lawyer that that you're gonna actually like is find a friend that's either used them or can recommend you to any other lawyer that, eventually will get you to someone that is the type of lawyer that you need.
All right. I want to do some lightning round questions here for you. Is
Love it.
there is there a book you're reading right now?
Atomic Habits. Yeah, I just
Okay.
started that one. You've probably read it. It's been around a while, but it's a good one.
I know we have it.
That's the hard
I
part is
know. Yeah, I know Dina's read. I'm pretty sure we have it on our bookshelf. I don't know that I've actually read it though, but I should.
yeah,
Is
it's
that
good.
what's your favorite book? Do you have a favorite book?
Favorite book. Two favorite books that I read last year. Giftology, which is just like kind of the art of gift giving,
Yep.
and which is crucial for like a referral based business, just trying to show thankfulness and gratitude. That was a good one. And then a marketing book. What's it called? Something. Let me grab it. It's right here. This is marketing.
Oh yeah, Seth Godin.
Super, super good.
He has a ton of great books. I have that one. He has like Purple Cow.
Hmm.
Yeah, he has a lot of books. So those are
Yeah.
good stuff. Okay. Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee. Lots of it.
Love it. What's your favorite local Des Moines restaurant?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Local. One of the most nostalgic and one that I always like to go to is Goldie's. It's out in Prairie City. They have big tenderloins and we lived out in Runnels, so it's kind of like a common place that we'd go.
Yeah, love it. I've never been there. All right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't be afraid to ask. I think like so often we get like fear of what ifs, what if we get rejected? What if lots of what ifs, the fear of the what ifs, but yeah, don't be afraid to ask. I think we've all
Yeah.
had like my lunch with you. I asked if we wanted to get lunch one day and here we are.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
ask.
Absolutely. That's what I always say too. Like the worst thing you can say is no. Like just I think people are afraid of that no.
Yeah.
You're not
No
going
one
to
wants
die,
to be
right?
rejected
Yeah, no one wants to be rejected, but I think if you can learn to take a few no's, and there's going to be some big yeses that come out of that too, I think. So,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I love it. I just to tack on to that too, like I was kind of notorious for this in the Navy because we had orthopedic surgery right next door to us, and so during part of that time, I was doing a residency and studying for my board certification. So I would walk over to ortho and ask just a million questions every single day.
Hmm.
And at first I thought, like, they probably think I'm stupid because I'm asking so many questions. But I remember a couple of years in there, they were frustrated with a case and they're like, well, that therapist never comes and asks questions like you do. Like, why aren't they asking questions? Like no one else comes and asks questions. He's like, you ask questions all the time. It's like, I'm just trying to learn. Like, why aren't they? I don't know. But it's kind of funny because at first I thought like, man, these guys probably think I'm an idiot, but I just wanted to get better. And towards the end of my tenure there, I kind of was the go-to therapist. They're sending anyone, especially the complicated cases, they were sending to me because they could trust me and they knew I was going to take good care of people and I was always trying to improve.
Hmm.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask, I guess.
Yeah,
The
and
moral of that story.
if we're afraid to, how we're going to come across, like if you would have been afraid to, of what they were going to think of you to the extent that it stopped you from doing it, you know,
Yeah,
it wouldn't have,
yeah.
you would have missed out on a lot of opportunities and growth for sure.
Right. And speaking of opportunities, one thing you did that I don't know if I thought it was genius, but you sent a letter to me. No one does that
Old
anymore. And
school.
I was so curious because I was like, wait a minute, is this like spam mail? But it seemed too genuine to be spam because you can kind of spot that, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I'm so curious right now. I've got to pick up the phone and call this guy. And so that's kind of how we met and ended up having lunch and it was a great conversation. But I'll never forget that because no one's ever done it since. No one did it before. So
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I think that's one thing that too, like some people who are kind of mentoring me, they always say whenever to send lots of thank you notes, handwritten, send letters, I guess kind of stand outside of the noise of the digital world.
Exactly. Yep. We were just talking about this with my front desk. I received a package for my birthday. They're a week late, but that's okay. The moral of this story, thank you. This company, I don't want to say what company it is. They'll send birthday gifts. They'll send something for Christmas, big holidays. And it's nice. It's nice to get something. But the thing that I pointed out was like, yeah, they sent this gift, but like there's this generic printed note in here.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
So it's like great, like they have probably have some system that automates this, and so some company gets notified and it sends it out, and they don't ever have to do anything. It's like, man, I'd rather just get like a handwritten card from them that
Mm,
says like "Thanks for your business" or something
mhm.
like that. And so that's something that we always do with our new clients. We'll send a handwritten thank you card and a gift card, and so I think that goes a long ways. And I mean, we have people come in and say that too. They're really appreciative of it, but I don't know, being on the other side of that where you get all this, like, automated stuff, it's like it just doesn't hold the same value, so keep
And
doing what you're doing.
like you said, it's so simple and so easy, and not expensive to just send something that's handwritten and take the time to
Right.
do it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure. Awesome, well, we'll wrap this up. If someone wants to get a hold of you or they wanna learn more about you, how can they do so?
Yeah, Reed Law Firm. You can if you search that on any socials, it'll come up. I try to put out content, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. My email is Justin at treidlawfirm.com, TREID lawfirm.com. Or you can Google us and take a look at our website.
But thank you so much, Justin. I appreciate this, I've learned a ton here. Thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.